Hello, everyone. This is Senor Quesada once again, and today we are going to learn about two new concepts. Number one is the present progressive, and number two, it followed by infinitives. Well, remember these are your notes. So, on a piece of paper, you guys need to take notes on the topics I'm about to explain. You need to write down all my examples and complete all my practice sentences. You guys need to highlight and underline important questions or ideas you have about these topics. And finally, you need to take pictures of the notes and upload those pictures to Google Classroom so you can receive full credit for the activity. Let's begin. So, first of all, let's review the present tense a little bit. In Spanish, we use the present tense when we talk about actions or events that take place now. For example, mi padre cocina la cena. My dad cooks dinner. We also use the present tense to talk about repetitive actions or events. So we used to talk about things that happen all the time. For example, yo camino a la escuela todos los días. I walk to school every day. Now, with this sentence, I can use the present tense not because I'm doing the action now, but because it happens all the time and it's something common that I do. And finally, we use the present tense to talk about events or actions taking place in the near future. If we know that something is really going to take place for sure, we can use the present tense. For example, nosotros nos vamos de vacaciones mañana. We're leaving on a trip tomorrow morning. So, this is a quick review on when to use the present. Now, let's talk about the new concept, the present progressive. Now, the present progressive is a little bit different than just the regular present tense. We use the present progressive to talk about actions or events happening now as we speak, and those events or actions are in progress. Now, to form the present progressive, we use a conjugated form of the verb estar, which is to be, followed by the present participle, just like we do in English. For example, in English, we say, I am talking. As you can see, we're using a conjugation of the verb to be plus the present participle ing following my verb, I'm talking. That means that the action is happening right now as we speak. In Spanish, that translates into yo estoy hablando. Estoy is the conjugated form of estar in the yo form. Hablando, we're using the participle ando after my stem. Now, in Spanish, we have two present participles. If we have an AR verb, the present participle is going to be ando. We're going to add ando to the verb stem. If we have an ER or an IR verb, then my participle is going to be yendo. We're going to be adding that to the stem. Now, don't forget, we need to use the conjugations of estar on this concept. So please write those down. Make sure you have those conjugations because you're going to need those conjugations later as we complete the practice. Let's move on. When we use a present progressive, the only verb that really changes is the verb estar. The rest of it is going to stay the same. For example, let's look at the verb caminar. Here we can see the stem, camin, and the ending AR, or the infinitive AR. Now, that AR is going to change to ando when we use it in the sentence. Camin, which is my stem, is going to stay the same. So, here we go. Yo estoy caminando. I am walking right now. As you can see, you have the conjugation of estar, estoy, the stem, camin, plus the present participle, ando. Now, if I want to talk about you, and I want to say that you are the one doing the walking, then my sentence changes to tú estás caminando. Notice that caminando stayed exactly the same. There was no difference between the yo estoy caminando and the tú estás caminando. That's because my participle and my stem is the exact same thing. What it's really changing now is the person doing the action, tú. And the tú changes the estar conjugation to estás. Here are some other examples. Sandra está caminando. El señor García está caminando. Juan y yo estamos caminando. And finally, Carlos y Perla están caminando. Make sure you write down all these examples. Now, for ER verbs like beber, the same thing is going to happen. Now, instead of ando, the stem is going to stay, and the ending ER is going to change to yendo. AR changes to ando, ER changes to yendo. So let's look at some examples. Yo estoy bebiendo agua. I'm drinking water. Tú estás bebiendo agua. You are drinking water. Sandra está bebiendo agua. Sandra is drinking water. El señor García está bebiendo agua. Juan y yo estamos bebiendo agua. Y finalmente, Carlos y Perla están bebiendo agua. Once again, notice how bebiendo did not change at all. It is exactly the same in every single one of those sentences. What's truly changing in those sentences is the conjugation of estar. That changes based on the person or the people doing the action in the sentence. Now, the same thing is going to happen to IR verbs. And before we move on, make sure you write down all of these examples as well on your notes. Now, with IR verbs, the same thing is going to happen. The IR is going to change to yendo, just like ER verbs. Exact same ending. So here are some examples. Yo estoy escribiendo apuntes. I am writing notes. Tú estás escribiendo apuntes. You are writing notes. Sandra está escribiendo apuntes. Señor García está escribiendo apuntes. Juan y yo estamos escribiendo apuntes. And finally, Carlos y Perla están escribiendo apuntes. Once again, notice how we're keeping the stem of the verb, and all we're doing is adding the ando or the iendo to it after we use the conjugation of estar. One more time, make sure you guys write down all of these examples on your notes. Now, some verbs are going to have a change in their spelling when we use the present progressive, and that's going to happen mostly to ER and IR verbs that have a vowel instead of a consonant as the last letter of the stem. Now, for example, the verb leer and the verb construir. As you can see, once we remove that ER or that IR ending, we have a vowel as the last letter of their stem. Because of this, the present participle is going to suffer a spelling change. So usually, the present participle has to be yendo for both ER and IR verbs. Now, because of the last letter being a vowel, we are actually going to drop, or not drop, but change the I, and we're going to make that a Y. So instead of yendo, it's going to sound as yendo. So in a sentence, it would look like this. Yo estoy leyendo el libro. I am reading a book. Same thing happens with construir. Nosotros estamos construyendo una casa. So once again, if you have an ER or an IR verb and the last letter of that stem is a vowel, we need to change that I in the present participle to a Y. Make sure you write down these examples as well. Let's move on. Now, it is time for you guys to practice this concept. What I want you guys to do is to use the following information that I'm about to provide and make it a complete sentence. Let me give you an example. For example, if I have the information Juan, salir con amigos, what you guys need to do is change that information and make it into a complete sentence. Juan está saliendo con amigos. Make sure you guys are using the right conjugation of estar and the correct present participle for each one of those verbs. Remember, please keep the stem and add the correct present participle. So here is the information you guys need to come up with your sentences. So take a minute, pause this video now, complete this practice before you move on to the next concept. Okay, since you guys are done, let's move on to the next concept. And this concept is ir a followed by infinitives. In my last video, you guys learned a few verbs that are followed by infinitives, such as preferir, querer, poder, querer, and some other ones. Same thing is going to happen with ir a. Now, we're going to use ir a in Spanish uh, plus an infinitive to talk about events that you or other people plan to do in the near future. So for this, we need to do a quick review of the verb ir. Yo voy, tú vas, usted va, nosotros vamos, ustedes van. Make sure you write this down. Now, how do we use this? Let me show you a couple of examples. Here is one. Yo voy a jugar fútbol con mis amigos. So what I'm saying in this sentence is that I'm going to play soccer with my friends. As you can see, we're using the conjugation of ir, voy, the letter A, and then what follows immediately is my action or what I'm planning to do, a verb in the infinitive form. Let me show you another example. Tú vas a lavar los platos. Once again, we have the form of ir in the to form, vas, the letter A, and then the infinitive, lavar los platos. Now that translates into you are going to wash the dishes. Let's do a couple of more. Martín va a cortar el césped. That translates into Martín is going to mow the lawn. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen later today or later in the week. All we know is that this event is going to take place sometime in the near future. Same thing for these two sentences. Laura y yo vamos a caminar por el parque. Laura and I are going to walk around the park. And Ricardo y Adrián van a arreglar la sala. Ricardo and Adrián are going to clean up the living room. Okay. Now, this is the concept. It's not that complex or complicated. Now, let's do some practice. Please make sure you write down all of this on your notes before moving on to the next slide. Now, here is your practice. So using the concept that we just went over, ir a followed by infinitives, I want you to tell me 5 things you guys are planning to do this week coming up. So, for example, my modelo would be yo voy a sacar la basura el miércoles. I'm going to take out the trash on Wednesday. That's because in my house, trash is picked up on Thursdays, so I have to take it out on Wednesdays. So please, like I said, make sure you guys write down 5 sentences telling me what it is you guys are planning to do this week. And if you're done, remember, make sure you guys, if you're done with your notes, make sure you guys have all my examples down. Make sure you guys highlighted or underline important questions or ideas from these 2 concepts. And if you're completely done with all the sentences I ask you to do as practice, take pictures of your notes and upload those pictures to Google Classroom so you can receive full credit for this one activity. Okay? And that's it for today. I will see you during class time. Adios.